Okay, should have the opening screen up on everybody's display there for, we're going to talk a little bit about DX clusters. And I misspoke saying that we could use this for field day. Field day, we really don't have the ability to, or we don't use any type of supporting software. So this is something that is strictly something that if you want to do any DXing, contesting, and we actually provide this ability to use what's known as a DX cluster for 7QP. Actually, 7QP is pretty much class we are in. We are unlimited, so we can run all the amplifiers we want. We can use all the tools out there to help us make contacts, and it's a free range for us all to do all of this stuff. So, um, so we're going to talk a little bit about what a DX cluster is, why a DX cluster is important to me, and how do I use a DX cluster. So we'll figure out, we'll show some examples on how we use it for both DXing and contesting. And where does the information come from for a DX cluster? Well, we'll have to talk a little bit about what a DX cluster provides us. So a DX cluster is a worldwide network. This is global, that gathers and disseminates information on amateur radio, DXing, and also for contesting, and actually for rag chews or just plain making any old contact out there. You can use a DX cluster to take and log whatever contact you're making, and you can actually add some little notes to it, and then that gets broadcast through a big honking network that everybody can listen into and figure out if you want to make contacts with the guy. So it's so computers on the network are called nodes, so that's all of us guys, and the big network is called a big cluster. So that's a big cluster of servers out there, and also other applications that end up disseminating the information from the DX cluster. So it's a system that aggregates, that collects information on people making DX and contest information. So anytime you're making a contact, it gets recorded, or you can have it recorded on a DX cluster, and then everybody in the rest of the world can see what happened there. System makes the information available to users connected to a network. So this information that you're getting there is, I'll say, pseudo real time. It's not really real time. It's always delayed by some amount of time. And I don't remember, there's some rule of thumb that they have on how much they delay those actual contacts and how it gets distributed to throughout the network. And also understand this is a network, so it does take time for things to get passed around between all of these clusters out there. So the first DX cluster was created back in 1980. It became very popular as far as a means of exchanging DX information. And this was before the internet. So they actually had, I think it was packet radios. I don't recall exactly how it worked, but they had actually radios that were all linked together that would broadcast this information. And then you had a method to connect to these um, these radios that was broadcasting the information, and look at the information to see where people were congregating and who was making what contacts. So along came internet, and then all of a sudden this little niche concept as far as a DX cluster really expanded rapidly. So it became there's more clusters, more information went in it, more applications for looking at this information, being able to filter the information. It just really, really exploded. So users would connect to the DX cluster node using Telenet. So Telenet was the key application that you ran on your local computer to see what was going on. And then now we've added more things on top of that as far as clients that look at that telnet stream of information and can do all kinds of great information for us that makes our life really, really nice. So DX cluster software, these servers out there, uh, understand that over years, there's been a lot of evolution on software, on how things are collected, how things are disseminated, how things are passed between nodes. So there's quite a bit of evolution. So the DX cluster was the original incarnation out there. DX Spider seems to be the current application out there that most of the server side likes to end up using. It seems to be the most flexible. There's a clause out there. I'm not sure what I haven't seen that guy around, but that's an older piece of software. iCluster is kind of a newer one that also that has a pretty good following. But most of the guys out there that we end up connecting with usually use that DX Spider for a server side. So how do we know? I mean, we have all these different clusters out there, and these all clusters have different personalities and different bits of information and different things that they want to end up showing you. So you have to end up going out there and finding where these things are. So it's really easy to go out there on the internet and search around and get a list of these clusters and then start doing a little research to find out what's the good and the bad about these clusters. So each DX cluster usually has a special purpose. Some of them are, you know, if we're in the digital world, a lot of these guys are either like for CW or packet. Um, they don't really use DX clusters. I haven't seen it being used for FT8. Usually the packet side of things takes care of all of that stuff. But the special purposes are kind of like, well, if I really want to know just what's being received over here in the West Coast, why do I want to use uh, a packet cluster that's really kind of built for what's going on here? I think Willamette Valley GX Club has a packet cluster, and I think there's one that was down in Eugene that really kind of specializes on what's being received here in the Pacific Northwest. So again, you have to go out there and look around and find what the special purpose for that cluster is and see if it fits your needs. So especially popular ones is DX Summit. That's a great one. That's one of the first internet-based um, clusters out there that was out there. DX Watch. I think DX Watch is a internet only cluster. I'll explain that a little bit later. One of those that I've used for a lot of years, and I don't know if it's still available, but that's by Simon, HB9 DRV. He was the creator of Ham Radio Deluxe. And I've always liked using that cluster out there for both for spotting and to find stuff that I'm looking for. So again, Google, get out there and Google, look around, and you can usually find these services and what they are usually used for. So why is the TX cluster important? So I'm on a particular band and I want to know what's going on that particular band. So we can take and invoke a filter and look at a particular band and see what is going on and see if any of these contacts are very close to my QTH. So within a band, look for local or DX type of traffic. You can filter for that. What modes are open, phone or digital. That's easy to trivial to filter for. Find countries or states. So if you're working on your DXCC or worked all states, this is a really cool way of getting a very quick look at what's going on per band and seeing if anything's coming in for a particular state out there. Looking for a special DX station. So if there's some special DX station out there that you've been trying to track down, this is a cool way of finding that guy and getting alert that he's out there and giving you the frequency of where to go to find him. So is the DX working split? So if you have a DX station out there that is working split, like an expedition, then that will be noted in that information that you end up getting. So where are the, like if you're looking for watering holes, local frequencies that usually have a lot of DX for phone or for digital, this will help limit or reduce that search down and help you to take and find where that hole is. So this is, yeah, here's good old DX Watch. So this is a web-based application. So this is what the screen looks like. You can go through there and you can set up filters to look for particular modes, for particular bands. You can search all the way down to looking for particular entities out there. Well, it's a cool way of doing it. You can also, from this application, from this web application, you can also log your contacts. And so that means everybody else, you can spot it. So everybody else in the world gets a chance to see who you're working and where you're working out there. Okay, good old DX Maps. That's another variant, but uses the same stream of information that comes out of the DX cluster. So it's showing worldwide what's going on. You can set up filters, like right here, I have a 20-meter filter. This is very similar to like PSK Reporter. In fact, almost the GUI here is pretty much a carbon copy of what they have on PSK Reporter for looking for FT8 stuff. But again, good way of finding stuff out there in particular bands and looking to see where things are open to your local area there. Here's a screenshot off of Ham Radio Deluxe. I actually generally run for just rag chewing and modest DXing. I'll use Ham Radio Deluxe for that. So in the lower center part of that screen, that's the Telnet feed that's coming in and showing everything that's coming in off of that Telnet feed. The screen right above that, or the window right above that, that's the current log. That's everything that I'm logging at that point in time and shows what I have actually logged. Over on the right-hand side, I pulled up just 40 meters, and that is everything that the Telnet is reporting to me. And I can see what stations I haven't worked, see what stations are DX, and I can go through there. And mind you, on Ham Radio Deluxe, that application is hooked up to my radio. So from Ham Radio Deluxe, I can control what's going on in that radio. So back again on the screen, the right side of the screen on that bar there, I can do a double tap on one of those call signs, and it will immediately take my radio right to that frequency. And then I can go through there, and actually it's even smart enough where it will fill in stuff for doing logging. And so it's pretty much, once I get finished logging the guy, I can just hit save and it's already into my logbook. But really very convenient in just being able to do a tap there and go on directly to that station that I need to put into my log. So let's get to the part that's kind of germane to 7QP. So for 7QP, we actually put together an internet connection over a cell phone, and we can connect up to, we do connect up to a DX cluster. And that information then gets replicated to all the stations that are connected to the server for N1MM. And that's a little server that we have running up on top of the mountain there. And it will give you a nice little picture like this. So this is the raw feed, the Telnet connection there. It shows who I'm talking to, WA9 Pi 2. And I think that's another one that I kind of like pretty good. It's a pretty decent cluster. Really good for contesting. The and if I want to take and hook up to someone, the next tab in where it says on the top row there where it says clusters, I can tap on that and that will go through there and give me this huge drop down list of all these clusters that have been registered all across the world. And that list is constantly changing. So some of them are good, some of them are bad. It doesn't tell you what the purpose of that cluster is. You need to do your own homework to figure that out. But that's where we select the particular cluster we want to go to. And then at the telnet level, we can go through there and do particular types of filtering. So we're not looking at the entire feed of everything that is coming through that cluster. So we can filter out bands, modes, and put in all kinds of other stuff. We can also set up spotting. If we have any particular comments that we wanted to put in there. And also if we have any particular bands that we want to include or eliminate. Usually you're trying to eliminate bands that you don't want to mess with. So that's the lead in that brings us the information into our server that then gets distributed to all of our stations. So on each one of our stations, then we want to configure what we want to look at. So if for some reason I'm responsible for 80 meters on the panel over on the right side there, you can see I have a bunch of tick marks on, but for both 80, 20 and 40 meters in there. So you end up putting a tick mark into the band that you want to look at, and then clear over on the right, you click whatever mode that you want, and then you set close, and then that will end up feeding to your logging screen, or actually your spotting screen, all of this information that has been spotted out there. Kind of get the idea. So you can filter out just what band that you're on, and you're only going to be looking at the information relevant to that band that you're on. Okay, so this is the big screen that you're going to be looking at here. And this guy here also links up to all the contacts that have been logged on your system. So this will show you who's been logged. So you don't want to go after them because there's a dupe and there's a setting somewhere for doing that. And this will show you what contacts you haven't made, if it's a multiplier. So like if you're doing search and pounce, if you have an option to go after multipliers, those are the ones that are like new states, new counties that haven't been logged before. So those are things that you want to end up going after. If it's just yet another contact within a county that you already have, it's also color coded for that. And unfortunately, I don't have my notes up here, so I can't remember the right colors, but I think green was malts, red was ones you haven't got to, and I think the blues are the ones that you've already made contacts with. So you've already had contacts in that particular zone. Does anybody remember what the color codes on this is? It's easy to look up in the help, but I don't remember right at the moment. Okay, sorry, but you get the idea. This is color coded. So the colors on here are important for when you're going after things. Also on this page, because N1MM is connected up to your radio, it has control over it. So it can tell that radio where to go. So if you see something on there that you want, like it's a big mult, you just double click on that dude and that radio goes right to that frequency there. And then you can go and work them. Now, one of the things that I'll add is that call signs that you see up here, one of the things you want to do is that when you go to that frequency for that station, listen to and verify that the call sign that guy is identifying as matches what's here on the display. There's a lot of times where, you know, a 3 will get translated to an 8, or there's some letter that gets added into it, but it's never exactly quite right. So on this guy here, you're going to be paying attention to that left column there, looking for color codes that you want to end up getting the most multipliers out of. And then once you get that cleaned up, then you can go to ones that are just new stations within the area. And so the interesting thing is that when you move over to the kind of the column over on the right, see where it says spotter? So this is the guy that put that information into that DX cluster that says I got this guy. So we will also be doing spotting on our system. So every time you make a contact, it will register as a spotter W7PRA. We will get credit for it. So Ted was talking about trying to find out where in the hell we were at and what we were doing. Pull up a DX cluster, look to see where things are spotting, put a filter in there, look for W7PRA. And time-wise, you'll be able to see what frequency that we're on and when the last time we made a spot out there. So that's a good way of trying to find us out there. Okay, so there's 2 other tabs up there that you can add more filters in there for malts, Q, and bands and modes and stuff like that. So if you want to filter things down even further, and you can, well, anyway, so more filtering. So filtering data. This is not a great slide, but anyway, you can look for rag chews. So just looking for a bunch of stuff going on in a certain area on a band. Find country states for if you're doing DXCCs, worked all states or doing contesting. If you're looking for islands on the air, IOTA stuff, you can also put in filters to look for that. I know that there is some way of putting in stuff for SOTA, but I think it's more of knowing where SOTA usually pops up out on certain bands and certain frequencies. But it's really good for DX hunting if you want to find a specific DX station. Because when I'm going out logging, when I'm running by Ham Radio Deluxe, I have spotting turned on. So every time I talk to a DX station out there, that gets spotted. So it's easy to find that in a system like this. It's also important to look for really high value stations that are multipliers. So that's what you use in contesting. I think I've already gone through all of this stuff here. You have filtering up the gazoo that you can do with this stuff. And it gets a little, you have to watch it at what step you do certain kinds of filtering to make sure you don't screw yourself further down the line. So I kind of use granted I get more data that I have to look at or might look at, but I usually use the data at the last point there to look at it. Then that's where I do most of my filtering. Okay, how does information get into the DX cluster? So a spotter is a station that announces the contact to the DX cluster. So for all of our little stations up there on that mountain up there, every one of those guys are spotters. And so every time we make a contact, we're going to send a announcement to the DX cluster that we just made a contact with this guy, what frequency it is, and at what time that we saw the guy. DX clusters share this information. So once it gets to the network out there, all of this information gets shared amongst the different DX cluster servers out there. And some are designed for different purposes. Some will throw it away. Some will save it and pass it on. Most logging programs will spot the QSOs. And so N1MM is that particular software that does a very good job of it. There are web and logging applications for spotting. Excuse me just a moment. Web applications are kind of being said it's not integrated with your radio. It's a more work to do that kind of spotting, but you can do it. I always like using applications that are well connected with the radio for doing all of that spotting. Believe it or not, there's also, you can, for DX clusters, guys that are just QSO listeners, just guys listening out there, they can also do spotting, and that will go into that spotting network. So how do I connect to a DX cluster? You can do some Google searching if you want web-based stuff. You can do searching, looking for some of the best, yeah, best DX cluster sites. That's in quotes, so that's a search that you can do a Google on, and it'll come back with lots of information that you may or may not want to read through all of it. There are many hundreds of sites, and I kid you not, many hundreds, lots of DX clusters out there, very ominous, and they are all over the world. So obviously, it's probably not a great idea to connect to a cluster that's over in Hamburg, Germany. You might want to connect to something closer to home here. And I did mention Simon's site there. The Pi site is one that I like, and then there's a couple others down below that. The VE7 one is one up in British Columbia that I've used before. That's pretty good. Um, so how do I connect to a DX cluster? Every client application or logging program is different. There is no consistency out there on how that works. But the bottom line is you need an IP address or a domain name, and there's always a port number. So that's after the IP address, there's a colon, a semicolon there, I guess, and then um, a port number on it. So some of the information you put in there is a little bit lengthy sometimes to end up getting that connection. In the DX cluster configurations, you basically select a cluster usually from a drop-down port. So this is, once you get that, then you usually end up using a drop-down to actually select it. I think I have things out of sequence here. Not all of these, every application doesn't always have the latest and newest list of all the DX clusters. So sometimes you have to manually put them in. When you manually put them in, it gets tedious with an IP address and a port number. But once you get it in there, then you can just usually use some kind of a drop-down list to select the particular DX cluster you want to work with. You can manually add the clusters to the list. This is a bad slide here. Some DX clusters require you to register. So some clusters you have to register separately. Most of the clusters out there, you just drop in your call sign and that registration gets done automatically because it does a lookup either in the FCC database or QRZ or someplace like that, and then recognizes you as a ham, and then you get logged in and away you go. Really cool, real cool and easy. So let's just wrap it up here. So it's an invaluable aid for doing DXing and contesting. I love using this guy because it really gives me a significant edge in finding stuff that I'm looking for. Very helpful in finding band openings. So if you want to know if a band is open in a particular area, you can look in the DX cluster and figure that out. I showed that DX map, and that is a real cool way of looking at bands being open in certain areas. Available as web and logging applications. There are many options for configuring these, and you will get drowned very easily when you start looking at all these various filters and how things work. But keep it simple and it'll work fine for you. Helps in finding high value stations, significantly improves your DX and um, uh, continuing, excuse me, significantly improves your DX and continuing experience. It's a really good thing to have. So anyway, that's it for this evening and I'm going to stop sharing it, and then anybody have any comments or questions? Go.
I have one, Mike.
Paul.
How
Yep.
many people here use N3FJP? Okay, just Paul. Okay, Vaughn, and maybe some others. I'm just going to share what Mike just explained. Let's see here. Where is it? Share my screen. I just want to share what this looks like on N3FJP. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but here is the logging program where I've connected, all of my different, all the different contacts. This is the spotting area down in here. Let's see, annotate. Here we go. This is the spotting area down in here. Okay, so these are the areas that this is where the how do I get rid of this? Oh boy. How do I unannotate? Oh boy. All right, anyway, you got this permanent marker, I guess. So anyway, over here, the area, yeah, technology is a killer. So all of these are a live feed here that that shows what is coming in, and if I'm on a particular band like 20, I can actually filter on that. And let's see, stop share. Let's try it again. Sorry about this, guys and gals. I am trying to do this very quickly, and because of that, I'm running with scissors. Okay, so what I do is I go to DX spotting and configure. Now, Mike talked about filtering, and I want to just show you what power this has here. This is the live feed that you're seeing right now. You have this ability to do more filtering. You can actually display spots from these continents, and you can unselect them and whoops, NA, so North America, and you can just say for field day, for instance, I only want to see spots that are coming in from North America, and then you can go into more filtering and you can go your continent, block CW if I'm only going to be working phone or digital, or if I'm blocking, I don't want digital, I just want phone, or I can do, if I'm just want to do CW and whatever. And then like Mike said on his check mark, you can actually say, check any bands you would like to block. So on that contest, we're not doing 30, we're not doing 17, we're not doing 12. And we really aren't going to work 6 and 2 and up because we're just not geared up for that. And then you would hit done. And then frankly, what you would do, what I do is I just re-enable the DX spotting, and up comes all of my applicable spots. And so if anybody wants to see more in depth on that, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to. I've been all up and down this application. And like Mike said, with that simple cable between your USB cable or your CAT cable or your DB9 or whatever you have between your computer and your radio, it will, once you click on that, it will send that frequency and mode to your radio and change it, fill in the call sign in your logging program, and it'll do everything except give the signal report. And that's your job. Thanks, Mike.
Any other thank you very much, Paul. I mean, and that's true. Most any of the newer supported logging programs have that capability built into it. And that's a very, very important feature. I use it all the time.
And if you have a real radio, then the spots from the cluster will come up on your PAN adapter, and you can see on your PAN adapter where all the spots off the DX cluster is.
Yep.
I almost forgot. Thank you, Anna. Yes, the real radio. Yes, absolutely. Excellent.
But are those what comes up on the radio, are they color coded to tell you what value they are?
They are. They tell you which ones you've worked. I don't know all the different color codes on there, but yes, they are color coded.
Okay.
I use it even without the DX cluster because my logging, when you hook it to N1MM like that, it will tell you every time you type in a call, like you're searching and pouncing and you're copying somebody and you just can't get them. If you tune off of that frequency, the radio will remember that and put it in blue, saying that you heard that person there, but you never contacted them. And then the color will change when you actually log that contact.
Cool.
So when I'm looking around the band and I'm scanning for search and pounce, I know, I don't need, there's a strong signal, but I don't need that guy. I don't even bother to tune there.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. As always, timely, poignant, accurate, and valuable information, especially with the upcoming contest and, of course, field day, which is an exercise / contest, depending on how you look at it. So thank you.
But
Uh,
for field day, we really can't use this.
No, you don't need to.
We're not aided.
No.
For PRA, field day is a social occasion anyway, so it's not a huge deal.
So for anybody who have been here for a number of years, I did a presentation on field day called CQ Food Day because it was all about the food. And oh, by the way, there might be some radios.
I love the way that I typed that in the chat before you said it. That's perfect.
Thank you, Vaughn. So yes, so yeah, hope you can all make it to field day.